Okay, our last but not least guest is Sarah Flynn. So Sarah Flynn is a successful property investor and developer, business owner, who's built up a portfolio using the strategies of house shares and flips. She's invested heavily in the UK property market and focuses on creating multiple streams of income out of each property as opposed to buying property in volume. She started her career in the corporate banking world, spending almost 10 years working for companies like Lloyds Banking Group and others. She's been a sales, operational, risk and audit manager, high level project manager. And then she founded her company, KAF Properties, in 2016 after the death of her 19-year-old brother, which had a huge impact on her life, catapulting her into pursuing her dream as a serial entrepreneur. She regularly speaks about her journey, her mission, and her desire to inspire others to believe there is life after trauma. She's also the creator of a podcast called The Ambitious Entrepreneur, where she interviews business owners, multi-million pound business owners, Olympic medalists, film producers, discovering what it is that drives them forward and what makes them successful as they are. So her talk today is combating financial uncertainty. Take it away, Sarah.
Thank you, Andrew. Right, I'm just going to share my screen because I've got some slides. And hopefully you can all see them. Can you all see that? Fantastic. Okay, so where are you financially right now? You know, do you have that security and that backing to overcome any sort of challenges that life throws at you? The Bank of England base rate is at an all-time low now of 0.01%. And in these awful, uncertain economic times that, we've all been talking about today that have been brought on by this terrible pandemic, whilst there are no guarantees, there are certainly still some options out there to yield high returns on your hard-earned cash, whilst at the same time being able to recreate a beautiful family home and watch a new young family move in and have a beautiful lifestyle. So what am I talking about? How can those two things marry up? Well, of course, I'm talking about property investing and investing in the UK market specifically. The great thing about property is actually, believe it or not, it's one of the safest investments that you can make, because if the market dips, it always recovers. And that's pretty much been the case in the entire recorded history of the UK market since 1926. And on average, a property price doubles every 10 years. So imagine how amazing it would be to see a distressed property being brought back to life again, and then seeing a new family move in and create their dream home. And you've been an integral part of creating that. So I just want you all to take a moment to think about if you can confidently say that you've taken all the necessary steps to make sure that you are financially secure should the worst happen. And I'm not asking you that to think about it to scare you or anything like that, but I do just want you to have it in the back of your mind as I speak to you today. So what's the problem? Well, the problem, of course, is that we are in these busy, hectic lifestyles at the minute. Everybody that you speak to just says they don't have enough time. So whether it's the time to be able to physically go out and look for investment, or maybe it's just that you don't have the time to get the knowledge and the know-how to be able to make a safe investment in property. And then, of course, let's not forget the fear factor. Fear is something that I come across all the time when I'm speaking to people about investing. And that's completely natural. It's something that we all feel and face every day. So who am I talking to you about property? Well, my name's Sarah Flynn and I am from Leeds in the UK, and I am the founder and director of KAF Properties, and we are a property acquisition business that partners with people who are time poor, maybe have the lack of knowledge or the fear, to bring them the great investment opportunities and high yields that property can provide in the UK. That wasn't always what I did, as Andrew briefly mentioned. So I come from a corporate background, the banking world, predominantly at Lloyds Banking Group, where I worked there for 10 years. And in that time, I took on some really high level roles, some project management roles, overseeing the whole of PPI. I did some risk and audit roles, and also some sales manager roles as well at an operational regional level. So where does property come into that? Well, in 2015, I dabbled in property, as I like to say. So I bought my first property to flip, which is where you buy a property that's distressed, you do some refurbishment work, and then you would sell it on the open market for a profit. And I just did that on the side of work, and I discovered that I really enjoyed it and it was profitable. So I spent the entirety pretty much of 2016 doing just that and repeating that on the side of my work. And that went so well, in fact, that by the end of 2016, I was able to quit my job in the corporate rat race altogether and become a fully fledged business owner. What do I do apart from that? As Andrew rightly mentioned, I am also the proud owner and host of a podcast called The Ambitious Entrepreneur, where I interview hugely successful people across the globe. So people like multi-million-pound business owners, Paralympic gold medalists, film producers, world-leading scientists, and we discuss the parameters of success, what success means to them, and what's made them as successful as they are today. Aside from that, obviously, as I'm speaking to you, I am an international speaker as well. So I speak predominantly on investing in UK property and also overcoming trauma. And if you're wondering why trauma, well, I will touch on that a little bit later on. So I've talked to you now about this problem that's facing people who'd like to invest in property. So there's the lack of time, lack of education, and also the fear factor. And in our business, we have 5 key steps to how we work with our clients to overcome those issues. So if we're looking at onboarding new clients, one of the first things we do is have a discovery call. So this is a completely free, no obligation chat for about 20 minutes where we just talk about if KAF Properties is the right fit for you. If we think it is, then we'll move on to the next section, which is all about future plans. So here we really would start to open up and discuss what your goals are. Now, if you're wondering, Sarah, why would I want to tell you what my long-term goals are for 20 years? Well, actually, it's essential because we need to make sure that we understand what's the reason you're investing. So is it because that you want to go on a round the world cruise? Do you want to maybe take a big retirement package? So whatever that is, we just need to make sure that we work with you to pick the right project for you. And then the third step really is about those opportunities and picking those perfect projects. So at this point, we'd open you up to some of the deals that we've got going on, the live opportunities in the business, and we'd also share some previous deals with you as well. And that's just to make sure that you get a really good varied understanding of the different structures that are involved. The fourth part is all around risk mitigation, and arguably this is probably one of the most important parts for me, particularly when dealing with that fear aspect. You know, and there are various different levels of security that we offer through our investment company to make sure that you feel that you're making a safe and secure investment. And then the fifth and final part is all around next steps. So at this point, we know that there will be some people that are ready and raring to go, and that's absolutely fantastic. And we can get you started and get you earning immediately. But for others, we completely understand that potentially you just need some more time to kind of digest that information and mull it over. And for those of you, we will just schedule a follow-up call. So at a high level, they are our 5 key steps that we do to onboard our clients to take out that time, education, and fear piece. So I did tell you that I spoke about overcoming trauma, and you know, I think it's really important when I speak to you today that, you know, as I said to you, in our business, we like to understand your why and why you're investing. So I think it's also important that you understand my why and how I got here and why I'm on this path. So I'm going to take you back now to mid-2015, and my brother, a lovely looking chap you'll see on the screen there, Kyle, he was 19 at the time and an electrician by trade. And he'd come over to my house to fit up a light fitting. And at the time, we were chatting and joking, and he just mentioned to me that he had this pain in his lower back. And I obviously, as a great big sister would do, laughed at him, you know, made a bit of a joke, told him that he'd been lifting 2 heavy weights at the gym because he was an big bodybuilder, really into weightlifting. And I just said to him, you know, I think you've been a bit of a wimp. So we had a good laugh and off he went. However, 3 weeks later, that pain that I mentioned didn't go away. And I found my brother in a hospital bed, lying there, almost lifeless, absolutely crippled in agony. And after multiple tests and prolonged waiting for those results, that pain turned out was blood cancer. And what transpired then for me was a very, very different life to the one that I'd known before. So for 7 months, every day I would go to work, and then from work I'd go to the hospital where me and my mum would take in turns to sleep by my brother's bedside. And I think it's probably also important to point out while I'm telling you this, that my brother's cancer was never terminal. So the reason why he was in hospital was because of the intense and invasive and chemotherapy treatments he was having was making his immune system very low, and it just wasn't safe for him to go out in the world. Now, I'm sure you can imagine that this process, of going through the treatment with my brother really was a roller coaster of emotions. And a lot of the time it really did feel like we were one step forward and 2 steps back. And in early March 2016, we spoke to the doctors, and Kyle was placed on a sort of very elusive drugs trial for immunotherapy. And they made it very clear to us that this was a last chance saloon. And then on the 21st of March 2016, as Kyle was going through this immunotherapy, he went from being sat up in bed in the hospital, talking to me, laughing and joking with me at 9 a.m, to being told that he had hypothermia by midday, to having a hole in his stomach and being rushed into ICU at 4 p.m, to being pronounced dead at 11:15 p.m. that same evening. And I'm not telling you this from a place of sympathy, because to be clear, I have moved on and I've made peace with the past, but I am telling you from a place of strength, because whilst all this hurt and anguish, and grief was going on inside me, I also just knew that something good had to come from something bad. And that's why I founded KAF Properties, in his honour and in his legacy. And in case you've not guessed it yet, the reason that our business is called KAF Properties is the KAF is my brother's initials, as a little nod to him. And, in those coming months, as I said, of that grief and hurt, I made a choice. And that choice was to grab the opportunity and the experience of my brother's passing to change my course of the course of my life and of my family's life for the better, because I didn't want to waste any more opportunities. So thinking about opportunities now and thinking along those lines, I really wanted to make sure when I got into property that I didn't waste any opportunities and I didn't miss those great deals. But I also wanted to make sure that I didn't make any mistakes that would be absolutely detrimental to me pursuing my dream and living out Kyle's legacy. And in the last 4 years that we've been investing, I think that there are 5 key considerations or principles that I'd just like to share with you now about property investing if you're thinking of going into it, because it will really help you to make a safe and secure investment. So the first one that I've already touched on is fear, but it's a huge one. It's a great consideration. People do have that fear of investing itself, and it's something that's completely natural, to feel that apprehension, particularly if you're thinking of putting your trust in somebody else when it comes to investing. One of the ways in which you can do that is making sure that your deal calculations are absolutely bang on. So at KAF Properties, we've got a bespoke deal calculator that we use that drills down the figures to the penny. And I do mean to the penny. We account for every single screw, door handles, fence paint, insurance costs, you name it, that goes into it to make sure that we are working out the worst case scenario on those deals. Personally, I've invested over £50,000 worth of my own money in educating myself in the property market. And I have, I think, gone over 400 plus hours now and counting of training myself in that area and understanding the market trends. And as a business today, we have gone and invested in over £2 million worth of property. And that, really helps to have all that backing and knowledge to eliminate the fear. The second key point for me is around investment area, another huge consideration. One thing that I see is enthusiastic property investors, they go out and they purchase a property because they've fallen in love with it. You know, love at first sight, you do get that with properties. And because of that, they end up buying it, but they don't actually know if that property is going to work for them in an area. And, you know, some of the best things that you can do for me is speaking to people at the forefront of the property, so the property market. So what do I mean by that? Well, going into letting agents, making yourself known to estate agents, having real open and honest conversations. And we even go, believe it or not, onto the streets and we speak to the neighbours, because they will always tell you the truth. You know, they are the people that live there, and they will not make any qualms about telling you if that's a good or bad area to invest in. So there are some of those just key things that you need to consider, as well as looking on property data websites, because they've got some great analysis as well. The third part is all around strategy. And again, another huge consideration, because it's important that when you're thinking of buying a property or you've purchased it, that you know what strategy you're going to use to make sure it's going to provide you with the returns that you're looking to achieve. And for me, I think there are three main strategies that you can use. The first one, as I touched on before, and how I got started, is a flip. So buying a property that's distressed, doing it up, and then selling it on the open market for a profit and making a nice little cash lump sum. The second one, which I'm sure everybody will be familiar with, is your bog standard buy to let. So buying a property might need a little bit of refurbishment work, it might not, and then renting it out on a monthly basis, getting a nice steady income, and that might be to sort of a young family or a couple, but one household. And then the third and final one, my personal favourite, I've got a lot of in my own portfolio, is a house share. And this is where you would purchase a property, you would reconfigure it to the way it needs to be, and then you would rent it out by the room. So you would probably rent it to maybe students or young professionals. And within that, they might share some communal areas like kitchens and bathrooms. And again, we have the right tools and knowledge at KF Properties to help you do that. The fourth area is all around supply and demand, and you know, property is no exception, just like any other business. So what do I mean when I'm talking about demand? So you need to make sure that there's a demand for this strategy that you want to deploy, and there's some fantastic tools online to be able to help you do that, and I've just outlined some here in this slide. So as you can see, propertydata.co.uk there on the left, that is you can do a free version of that, and it provides you with some great insights just by tapping in like the postcode of an area, and it will tell you all about the area. Similarly, you can do sort of fake ads. That's something that I like to do. You know, so I might put an ad up for a house share to see if anybody's interested, and if there isn't, then I know there's no demand there. And also things like the big main websites like Zoopla, Spare-Room and Rightmove also got some great raw data on there as well. You know, you don't want to be buying a house to flip in an area that's got 83% rental. And that's really important. And the fifth, and final point is about security. And this really is, if you're looking to invest with a company, just make sure that that security is there. So personally for us, we do legally binding loan agreements with everybody that we come across that invests with us, and they're lodged with a solicitor. We also do offer extra levels of security. So we have first and second charges over properties, restrictions, and in some cases also temporary shares in the company for some of those bigger deals. So I hope you've learned something there about investing in the UK property market and how we can help. If you do want to learn more about us, please book in a 20-minute discovery call with us. I will put the link in the chat in a minute, and we can talk to you about how you can get started and what services we have got to offer. You know, a really good example of this actually was a couple of years ago. We had a lady that came to me, and she was in a bit of a distressed state. So she had been burnt in the past with some property investing, and she, at the time, she'd just lost a job and she'd just lost a mum, so real double whammy, awful situation, but it did mean she had some inheritance. And she booked in a call with me. We had a long discussion about her needs and how to mitigate the fears that she had. And we basically decided we put a plan together for her, and she ended up investing £50,000. And within 2 years, that £50,000 had become £60,000. And because we have so many varied options, in this particular case, she was paid monthly, because she can opt to take the interest on a monthly basis up front. So we effectively paid her mortgage for her. So we give her £400 a month for 2 years every month without her having to lift a finger. How cool is that? So as as I say, you've really got nothing to lose. Click on the link below, get booked in, and let's have a discussion. Thank you.
Okay, perfect, Sarah. 10 seconds to spare. You really nailed it.